Welcome into the Tech Ed Podcast. My name is Matt Kirkner. I am your host. We are the number one podcast in all of technical education, and not a week goes by, not an episode goes by that we don't hear from somebody in manufacturing or around manufacturing that we don't talk about how do we get the next generation of talent excited about these incredible, amazing careers in advanced manufacturing. We've got somebody on the podcast today that has done tremendous work in figuring out how to relate manufacturing careers and the incredible opportunities in advanced manufacturing with people of all ages, all backgrounds, but especially those Gen Z and even younger students that are thinking about careers in advanced manufacturing. His name is Drew Crowe. He's our guest today on the Tech Ed Podcast. He's the founder of the New American Manufacturing Renaissance. Drew, welcome aboard. Great to have you.
Yo, thank you. And what an intro, man. Can I take you with me for the rest of the show?
Well, you know, with all the energy you have as we were getting warmed up and all the cool stuff, I think I'm in. You just let me know. We'll tag team it. That'll be a great visit. But we do have tremendous amounts of energy around these careers. I spent 25 years as a manufacturing executive, as a leader, and now doing things in terms of outreach and education. Same mission as yours, but I think you're reaching a different audience in many ways in a much better fashion, and we're going to learn about that. Before we talk about all the great things that you're doing, Drew, tell us about your life journey. I know you grew up in St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
Tell us where'd you come from?
So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and, you know, I grew up in the part that was the part you see on the news for the wrong reasons. In short, I went to a school that the teachers didn't really look like me, and we couldn't engage each other. They were underpaid and overworked, you know, and I didn't know what I was good at. I didn't know what I could do. And I found a job in manufacturing. I was a 2-time felon and a father, both before I was 18.
Wow.
And it was tough. It was a journey, but finding a good job, getting a good job in manufacturing really shifted the tides for me and put me on a different pathway.
You know, I'll tell you this, and I won't be in the interest of time, I won't share the whole story, but as somebody that ran manufacturing companies all those years, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people about, look, in manufacturing, we don't really care what you did. We don't care where you came from. Oh, well, what's important is if you've got the right heart, if you've got the right mission, if you love manufacturing, if you can add value, if you're dependable, all those things, whatever mistakes you made in the past, that's all in the past, and we will take you in manufacturing. Is that what you're finding?
100%. Oh, my goodness, man. You summed it up so well. I'm getting goosebumps while you're saying it, because everywhere that I tried to get, you know, a job or just any traditional job, those felonies kept me from that opportunity, right? And in manufacturing, it was the first place that, I felt like an American, honestly, because I was making parts that went into jet fighters.
Love that.
Yeah, and I was like, yo, this is how I can, as a felon, I can enlist. That was my first thing. So I didn't know what to do, and I was like, yeah, maybe I can enlist, but the felonies kept me back.
Enlist in the military.
Right,
yeah.
So I couldn't do that. So then it was like, okay, what's next? Try to get regular jobs. Didn't know what my skills were. Didn't have any, honestly. Didn't have any skills, anything transferable to a person that could work a good job. So I didn't know where to go, and manufacturing was the first place that it was, if you put your head down, you work hard, you keep your mind open and learn, there is literally no ceiling. And I started third shift being the guy that cleaned the machines and cut the material down and dropped it off to the real machinist. And I would stay after I clocked out. First shift would come in, all the old Polish guys, you know, and they would say, look, I'll teach you, you can get here. And if you learn this art, this is an art.
It is.
If you learn this art, you will never, ever go hungry again, nor will your children. And when I heard that, I was like, this is exactly what I need, right? And I believed in myself. And the fact that they told me that they could turn me into one of them, I believed in them as well.
Great opportunity, great experience. And so let's give that first company a little bit of credit. What was the name of the company where you started your manufacturing career?
This was Enpro Seal.
Okay.
In the Quad Cities of Illinois. Right outside of Moline, Illinois. And we were making non-contact bearing isolators. That's where I first started on the saw. That's where I became a manual machinist. Went from manual machinist to running Doosan Pumas. 3-lathe cell. And really just found the confidence in myself that, you know, there was something out there for me and it was something that I was actually good at.
So that's incredible. So we've got another connection. We were talking about the St. Louis connection as we were warming up. I actually owned part of and ran a company in Eldridge, Iowa, right in the Quad Cities for a bunch of years. So right on the other side of the river from Moline. So we've got that connection as well. That's part of where my interest and excitement in machining and in manufacturing got started. That kind of lit that fire in me around manufacturing in that job and in others. And so we think about that, and we think about the challenges that manufacturers have in terms of recruiting this next generation of talent. Does manufacturing have an image problem with the Gen Zs, or with middle schoolers, high schools, what have you? Tell me about that.
I think we do. I think the image problem is less of a problem than the communication problem, right? And I think that, if you look around the Student Summit right now, or you go upstairs and walk around the show, manufacturing is sexy. Like, it's lit up, it's bright, there's robots doing cool stuff, anything you want them to do. The machines are amazing. So I don't think that we have an image problem as much as we used to. But we've got a problem communicating exactly what this is and what we do and what you can do with it. And people don't really care about, what we make or how we make things until they care about the why.
Yep.
Like, why would I make things? What is the part that I play in the bigger picture? What is the bigger picture? You know, what can I do within this thing? And once we start communicating why we're in this industry, why we've stayed in this industry so long, what this industry's done for us, then they can start making real connections and see where they could be.
Because you think about working in manufacturing and you might be machining a part, right? Well, that part is going somewhere. I used to do a ton of work for Harley-Davidson. I did a ton of work for Rockwell Automation, John Deere, Toyota, Cummins, Mercury Marine. Every single part that we were manufacturing, that ended up in some end-use product.
Yes.
And whether that was improving somebody's life and healthcare products, maybe extending their life, saving them from a life-threatening disease and so on. There's all those applications.
Yes.
Somebody riding on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, enjoying life and doing it as safely as possible.
Yes.
All of these different examples of how we're not just in there setting up a machining center, programming a machine, and running parts. We have a key part of the economy.
For sure. And that's what I tell manufacturers, to make sure that they're communicating. Like I said earlier, my first job at Pro Seal, I was just cutting the material. But I felt like if I'm not cutting this material, like I'm getting paid $1 million per cut, our country is not safe. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Even though I'm so far away from the actual jet and the actual person that's flying it in the front line, I felt like I'm the support of that person. And I would never meet this person, but I feel like I play a part in that person coming back home to their family, right? I feel like that person will never meet me, but they play a huge part in making sure that my family is safe and can go to bed and wake up and do the natural things that we enjoy every day. So when you tell a person you're not just making a part, this is actually what it goes into, or this is the application, then they feel like they have a bigger role to play and they've got a mission. And especially with this younger generation, they don't want jobs. They want a mission. They want to be a part of something, right?
100%.
So give them that picture of, tell them what they're a part of, show them what they're a part of, show them how their intelligence and the things that they love can be translated through this part to make it even better and to, have the life that they want to have.
So think about, you thought about enlisting, and obviously for anybody that's serving in our nation's military, doing incredible work, and thank God for those people. And we're so blessed to have the freedoms that we enjoy in this country as a result of the work they do. But here you are working in manufacturing, building parts for jet fighters, and playing your own role in protecting the nation's security.
So I think about this as well. When we see conflict and we see things that happen, unfortunately, nobody wants war to happen. Nobody likes that. But how can we use what we have now to make sure war doesn't happen, right? So we literally we can control the future. We can create the future that we want to live in through this industry. So, whatever people's passions are, whatever people want to see the world like, this is the beginning place of how you create that world that you want to live in.
Absolutely. You're in on the ground floor of the opportunity of creating the future of the entire globe. So that, what could be bigger than that, right? And we're doing that in the world of manufacturing. You sharing that message more strongly than perhaps anybody on the planet. I understand you're going by Drew the Manufacturing Crowe, right?
So I actually just saw walk past me some of my former students. I was the head of department for CNC manufacturing engineering at a technical college.
Which one?
Rankin Technical College.
Yeah,
You familiar?
awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So at Rankin from 2018 to 2022.
Awesome.
So saw a couple of my graduates and an instructor that I worked with over here. And before I started teaching, I was in the industry. So I was running the shop.
Right.
And machinists were kind of a fraternity, so whatever.
Sure,
so
it's a brotherhood,
it's a brotherhood,
sisterhood.
Yeah, exactly. So we all had nicknames, and my nickname was Gucci Castro.
Okay.
And I had a sticker on my box. Every machinist has a box, right? And the sticker said Gucci Castro, and it was there for 4 years. And then I started teaching, and I was like, well, I can't be Gucci Castro. I got to be Mr. Crowe. You know?
Right.
And the students, I came in one day, and they were like, yo, you're too cool for Mr. Crowe. We got to give you a nickname again.
Right.
And so they wrote the MFG on the board.
Okay.
And every day I would, first I asked them, what does the MFG stand for?
Right.
And every kid who had a different relationship with me had a different acronym for
got
it.
it.
You know what I'm saying?
And you got your MFG, your bling going on there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it became a thing. And now when I go on the road on my tour and I get in front of kids, they are excited to like tell me what their version, like what MFG stands for. So now it's bigger than me.
Yeah, for sure. That's what you want, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And it even goes into the chain. So, we just were fortunate enough to take a picture with, I think, a high school class right here. And it was the conversation that I had after the picture. The guy was like, I like your chain. And I was like, well, actually, I 3D designed and 3D printed the mold, and then we cast it over the mold. And so
awesome.
it's the things that I learned in this industry that allowed me to make the things that I like, and you can do this too.
Without a question. And so I should mention for our audience, by the way, we're recording this at the International Manufacturing Technology Show, right? So we've got all kinds of people coming by the studio here and waving and saying hello as we're recording it. And that was the reference that Drew made to former students. And just so much excitement, so much energy here around careers in manufacturing. And again, you're able to talk about these careers in ways that so many of us are not able to. You use careers like blue collar baller and talk about using street cred in manufacturing and leveling up your game. So talk us through a little bit of that. You've got a different way of reaching students than most people in manufacturing. And what would your approach entail? You talk about when you're on your tour and doing your stuff. Tell us about that.
So, I found that my message was getting to the youth a little bit more impactfully because of, just my lived experiences, right? And being a part of the culture, I feel like the culture is going to raise the kids, right?
Yep.
No matter how great you are at parenting, no matter, how great of a mother, father, whatever figure you are, the culture is going to be the thing that your kids lean into, right? No matter what that is at the time. And right now, the culture is like, hip hop and TikTok and, those types of things. And I just so happen to have came up in that culture. And so kids of all ages, do TikTok dances, all ages, all races, all genders. Like that's a thing that translates, right? So the culture is going to permeate everything. And for a long time, manufacturing was anti-culture. Like we resisted influencers. We resisted social media. We resisted a lot of things because we had the luxury to be able to, right?
Yep.
We were the unknown industry that was keeping the lights on for the whole world until we didn't anymore.
Right, until we couldn't find people and
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then it was like, oh no, what do we do? Right.
Yep.
And then so while the rest of the world was aligning with the culture and getting the benefits of it, we didn't ever have to. So now we're trying to hurry up and like speed up and like get hip, and we don't have the people to be on the platforms to connect. So when I found that I was able to connect with the youth and I was able to, do these things, I said, I got to use my voice for a reason.
Right.
And I want the industry that saved my life to not only thrive, but I want it to continue to be a vessel for other people that might need this as well.
Right.
And there's no better, elevator into the middle class or beyond.
For sure.
You can take this anywhere.
You can.
Than manufacturing. We got a bunch of jobs. And the people need to work. They need good work. And they just didn't know that we were here. And they didn't know what we were doing. So I decided to use my voice and use this opportunity to be that bridge and be that communicator to say, hey, this is what the industry is. This is what you're telling me that you need. Let me, talk about how to bring you together to speak the same language to each other.
So the culture raises the kid.
Yep.
And so you're, and obviously great parenting important, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a combination of, whatever those lessons are that they're learning at home and wherever else, plus the culture that they're growing up in. You talk about the industry that saved your life. I mean, wow. There cannot be a better affirmation of the opportunities in manufacturing. And then you get into the whole idea of elevation and moving up through the ranks in manufacturing. I tell people all the time, you can start out sweeping the floor and end up running the company in manufacturing.
1,000%. And that's another thing that makes the message hit home. When I'm saying these things, it's not just like a cliche or like a tagline. Like, I was in the streets. I was in a lifestyle of going in and out of jail and prison. And I only had two options if I continued that life: prison forever or death,
right?
And then not only was it me, but my son. I'm 19 with a 4-year-old son, right? And my son is starting to emulate what I was doing. So not only did it save my life, but so my son is at University of Memphis Engineering School right now in his second year, right? So
wow.
So it's a generational thing. So not only can we break generational curses, we can elevate our family or legacy into a place where we're not, struggling like we were. And for Americans right now, just for people of all races, genders, and everything, that's a message they can get with. Like you said earlier, yes, the culture is going to raise our kids, but if we embed our lessons and our messages in the culture, then by default, that becomes the culture, and that's how our kids are raised. So instead of being anti-culture, we use the culture, we embed what we have in the culture in a way where it's real, where they can digest it, and they can be a part of this as well.
So let's talk about how you do that. You mentioned TikTok, you mentioned dancing, you mentioned this whole idea of, that bridging across cultures, across generations, across, whatever that barrier is. So what are the other ways that you, and for that matter, manufacturers can reach across those barriers and reach what we call, screenagers now, and those students, and those young people that are spending all their time on their phones and what have you, and maybe adults like me who have probably a little bit of a problem with that as well. But
so we embrace that, right? So number one, I do a tour every year called the New American Manufacturing Renaissance Tour. This tour is between 12 and 15 cities each year, and I go out and I spend 2 days in each city. The first day I spend with high school students, middle school students, and job seekers, and I teach them about our industry using my life story as the vessel, right?
Yep.
And then I bring people from their area that are either technical educators or technical colleges or somebody that's in the industry that's from where they're from. So they can take my story and then say, okay, I'm inspired. How do I begin that journey now, where I'm from, this technical college, this internship program? They can ask the questions. They can really make it real where they are. The second day, I spend with industry, and I bring industry out. I bring city leaders out, and I teach them how to get back in touch with the people, how to use the culture. We just talked about cell phones, right?
Right.
I've been fired from a machine shop for having my cell phone out.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Come on, right? They were so like about it. And it's like, dude, number one, I've got an app on my phone calculating feeds and speeds.
Right.
So I'm actually,
I'm doing work.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing the thing that you want me to do, but I'm making it actually more efficient and effective for you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it's like, find those kids, find the people and know what they're using and say, okay, how can I take that phone? How can I take this person that keeps making TikTok videos while they're supposed to be working? They got a long run time. They're taking TikTok videos, take them and then post them on your account, right? That's the culture working in your favor.
Yep,
so use that in your benefit instead of reprimanding that kid, right? So don't be the person that's stuck in your traditionalist values. We've got 5 generations at one time in a machine shop, right? So we've got the baby boomers, we got the traditionalists, we've got everybody down to the screenagers. And so we've got to understand that what works for this new generation might not have worked for my generation, might not have worked for yours. But what's working for them is working. So let's figure out how to work with that and work through that instead of being anti and being against that. And that's what makes the culture come, right? That's what makes a kid say, yo, this is my homeboy that I've been following. I look up to him on LinkedIn and TikTok or whatever it is.
Yep.
And he's at a machine shop. I want to be at a machine shop.
Right.
You
Exactly. And
know?
that's how you reach them, and
Right.
that makes all the sense in the
Right.
world. What are manufacturers getting wrong? I mean, you talk about, and I lived through those days,
Yeah.
right? No cell phones on the floor.
Yep.
What I and I like to think in manufacturing that's morphed a little bit, but certainly some of those really really rigid rules and expectations that probably worked for those those 10 machinists that were teaching you the trade those years ago, but aren't working necessarily anymore. What else is manufacturing getting wrong that we need to correct in terms of recruiting the next generation of talent?
So I don't like to use words like wrong or,
Okay.
I like to use where areas of opportunity.
There you go. I like
Because
it.
we look at it differently when we frame it like that. But I think that we put the burden on them. We put the burden on the people that we want to work, the youth, the job seekers. They've got to find us. They've got to figure out what we're doing. They've
Right.
got to, do all of the work. And then once they finally do all of that, then maybe I'll give you a job, right?
Right. Yep.
And it used to be that way. It used to be where we had fish jumping into the boat. Well, it used to be where people would line up, outside of manufacturers' doors. Before Boeing was Boeing in St. Louis, it was McDonnell Douglas.
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid, I didn't know what they did in McDonnell Douglas, but I remember everybody that moved out of my neighborhood, all of my friends who got a better, went to the suburbs, whose parents had 2 cars now, and they go to a better private school. Their parents worked at McDonnell Douglas somehow.
That's
You know
that's a
what I'm
great
saying?
story.
For
I
real.
hear
So,
you.
so
Yeah.
growing up, it was always like, okay, whatever happens, I need to work at McDonnell Douglas. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah. Right.
So it's like it's once that becomes more evident, like we'll make it happen, and that starts with you don't have to open your doors, you don't have to go get the people and bring them in, but we have phones now.
Right.
That's the great equalizer. You're opening your doors and you're showing your shop with the phones,
Yep.
with the content, with things like this, new media. The fact that you all are investing in doing things like this is the culture. We're going
you.
to the place where the people are, we're using the mediums that they're used to digesting information from. So if we make sure that we're there, if we make sure that we're getting the guests that are speaking to the people, then
Right.
our messages can get across. And so I think that's our biggest area of opportunity, not just saying, we need to change their perspective. Do it. It's free.
Yep.
You have a
Right.
phone right now. Change the perspective.
You have a phone, you have access to social media, you can create content, your team can create content, and then in the case of that, or in the process of that, to attract that talent to
Yes.
advanced manufacturing, and that's what we need to be doing. And so certainly connecting with the next generation on social media using the great equalizer, which is the iPhone I've got sitting next to me, and probably every single student that's walking through this student summit has some version of a smartphone, and we can be connecting with all of those students in that fashion and attracting them to manufacturing. And when they come to manufacturing, when they arrive there, creating an environment that captures their interest and shows them it can be an exciting place to work. Is that a baller environment? Tell us what you mean by that term.
That is the biggest baller environment, is the culture and in your side of your shop. And we talk about, attracting the youth and attracting new workers. And, attraction isn't the hard part. Again, like I said, our technology is changing at breakneck speed. The things that we do in this industry are, already connected with what kids are doing right now. They're playing video games. They're manipulating 3D environments. They're solving complex puzzles in video games all the time. They're problem solving. They're working as a team. They're building with their hands. They're making, there's a robotics league almost in every high school some kind of way. STEM is popping, so we don't really have the same, I think, attraction problem anymore. We've got a retention problem, right? We've got an area of opportunity in retaining. And you can get people in the door, but to keep them in the door, you've got to do something for them. And it doesn't mean financial, right? So this means what drives you, right? So going back to my own story, Donnie Ogle was the guy that gave me my first job in the shop. Donnie he's from the Quad Cities. He's from, Sticks a little bit, right? And he retired probably 2 years into my career. So he was, towards the end of his career when he hired me, we didn't have probably anything in common, but he saw inside of me, and I'll forever be grateful for this, that I could be, and I had the drive, and I needed this job. And so when he told me that, I'm going to start you on the saw, but if you want to be a machinist, I'll make a machinist out of you.
Yep.
You just come every day, you put your head down, you work hard. And the fact that he told me and gave me a pathway and told me that he's going to empower me and help me get there,
right?
That's what made me keep coming back. That's what made me start to believe in myself. And once we do that for job seekers, once we do that for the new generation, hey, it might start at the shop floor, but it doesn't end there.
Right.
Here's what your career picture could look like. Here's how we're going to help you get there. You're not only helping them, but you're helping yourself, because a higher skilled worker is a more productive worker, a worker that's empowered to do their job and can do their job well, has all the tools to do it, is a worker that's going to stay there. That's a loyal worker. That's somebody that's going to take your company into the next generation or innovate and make the next product line that you have or make the product that you have right now even better. So it doesn't start and stop with the hire. That's the bare minimum.
Right.
That's the very beginning. After that, we're going to empower, we're going to continue to, bring resources in to make this person the best that they can be. And they don't know what it is. Like, I didn't even know what machining was.
Right.
I didn't know what this job on the saw was going to entail. I didn't know what a machinist was. But the fact that he told me he could make me one, made me want to learn everything about it. You know what I'm saying? So,
absolutely.
So these kids don't know about our industry right now. As they're learning, show them the complete pathway. Hey, this is a robot. You can program these. You can build these. These are applications that you can use for these. What would you use it for? Just get their mind going and give them a clearer picture of how far they could go.
I think that speaks to a couple different things that are really, really important as we think about our traditional manufacturers and they're trying to attract talent. And that's right. That's the starting point, right? I mean, getting that person in the door, signing them up, putting them on the payroll, you're just getting started. That's not the end game. That's where you're starting. And then it's what are we going to do to keep these people around? Again, as somebody that came up in the manufacturing world of the 1990s and so on, it was just a different world, right? You had more people than you had jobs. They were great paying jobs back then, but you kind of had your pick of the litter in terms of who you wanted in manufacturing. That world is different. The way that people look at jobs is different. You suggest that, it's not about compensation necessarily, not to say that isn't important, and we make great money in manufacturing. But the truth is that if you look at the list of why people do what they do and why they choose their careers, compensation is usually somewhere around 5 or 6, which surprises a lot of people.
100%.
And now you look at this next generation, and you mentioned earlier in the discussion the importance of mission. I want to be a part of something bigger than myself. I want to know whether I'm manufacturing this part that's going into an end-use product that's changing somebody's life or something like that. That's way bigger than just coming to work and earning a paycheck every day. And then we have to think about, all right, I've got this young person. Picture yourself. You're a 20-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, whatever. You're coming into manufacturing. You're surrounded by some people that maybe grew up like you and maybe some people that didn't grow up like you. And somebody's got to say, okay, here's our mission, here's our purpose, and now I'm going to put my arm around you the way Donnie did with you.
100%.
And we're going to tell this person, we're going to be with you, alongside you, dealing with your challenges, training you. One of the challenges we had in manufacturing is we used to kind of create this whole idea of, somebody's got to cut it. We're going to put them through Hell Week for the first 2 weeks and see if they're tough enough to make it, right?
As an instructor, that was like a lot of the feedback that I would get from the kids, right? So when I first got to Rankin, the program was 4 semesters, but when I got there, a lot of the feedback I got from industry was these kids that are coming out of the program still aren't ready, to run my machines. I've got to do a lot more investing in retraining.
I'm going to tell you why that's funny, but keep going.
So and even when before I became a teacher, that was the rhetoric. Okay, don't hire out of technical college. We would rather get somebody off of the streets and then we can train them, right? So when I got in there, the first thing I wanted to do was build a stronger bond between education and industry and really listen to industry, find out what they need, and then find out how I could do that with the resources that I had, because it all goes hand in hand. I can't bring people into the program if I can't promise them a good job at the end of this, right? And I wouldn't even want to take someone's money for this education if there's not something at the end of it.
It's unethical.
1,000%. You know what I'm saying? And that's why the 4-year college plan is not as attractive to the youth anymore, because they've seen lots of debt, and then a job that doesn't pay, right? Or the job that's no longer there, right? So I didn't want to do that. So what we did was we switched it to a different type of program where we went year round. We would do 8 weeks in the classroom and then an 8-week internship with industry, right? Kids would go on their internship and they would come back and they would say, I don't like the place that I worked at because they made me just do punch press all day, or they made me just do spot welding all day, but I'm programming fifth axis CAD cam over here. at least I can, maybe half the day do that, or the next half of the day sit in the room and just watch the programmers, just be in the room with the programmers.
Right.
And it's like, yo, these kids are brilliant.
Right.
These kids are getting SolidWorks and Mastercam and all that stuff on their own.
Right.
And then they're looking up YouTube and they're figuring these things out. So you got a kid that might be 16 that's already got 10 years of CAD/CAM experience, 3D environments and design and all that different stuff. And you're keeping him away from the thing that he excels at, right? And those kids aren't going to a different shop. They're leaving our industry.
Right.
They're switching their majors, you know what I'm saying? And we're losing these brilliant minds that are motivated. So the hazing thing is the worst. Like, oh, you got to start off here because I did that. And then you got to spend 5 years here because I did that. Yo, what do you like to do?
Right, exactly. Well, and so I have to tell you a quick story. I had a manufacturing company that I ran about 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We had some of those issues in it. We did a lot of metal fabrication. So I had some machinists, but I had a lot more welders. And so we worked really closely with the welding program at our local technical college. And so we hired a student out of that program, just got his associate's degree, and came into the company. And like a week and a half later, I said to the department director, actually the supervisor, I said, how's that kid working out from the college? He said, well, he's okay. I don't think he's going to make it. I'm like, what do you mean he's not going to make it? Well, I don't know that he knows how to weld. I'm like, well, he's got a degree. I think he probably knows how to weld. Well, he doesn't know how to do it our way. And I'm like, well, who's going to know how to do it our way unless we teach him, right? And so it's really about, recognizing that it's not going to be this hazing situation where we're going to see how tough you are in the first 2 weeks or a month. And if you can make the cut, then we'll keep you day one. We've got to give that young person a big hug, say, we're going to show you how to do this.
And kudos to you for your insight of knowing, because that's the next step. The first step is identifying, like, okay, where are there holes in our process, right? But the second part is understanding that it's our process, so it's on us to figure out. The burden isn't on that kid to figure out our process.
Right.
The burden is on us to get that kid a clear message on what our process is, and then empower them to understand how to do it from where they are, right?
Exactly.
And so same way with our messaging, meet them where they are and teach them how to get here. Show them the pathway into what they want to do, because if they could do it themselves, they'd already be here. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. In a nutshell, the problem isn't necessarily, and it usually isn't, the next generation isn't right for manufacturing. The problem is that manufacturing
not ready for that next generation.
And we have to get ready really quickly, which includes building amazing relationships with our technical and community colleges. You've got a unique perspective here because you're doing all the advocacy work now and changing lives. You had time in a technical college actually delivering learning as an instructor. You spent time in manufacturing. So what does CTE need to do differently to reach the next generation?
Great question. So I think number one, CTE has to communicate what our industry does and how we do it in a better way. So a lot of times when we look at technical education and technical schools, other fields get more love because they're more visible. So everybody knows what a plumber is. Everybody knows, like what construction people do because they see it.
You see them,
They see it all the time, right? We're unseen, right? So we have to be intentional on saying, hey, this is a field. This is a field that's in everything that you love, and being able to communicate that better. The next thing is, as the industry, I know we talked about CTE, but as the industry, I think that burden is on us as well.
Right.
CTE departments, their budgets are tight. You know what I'm saying? Like being an instructor, it's tough to keep up with the skills that we need to teach in the industry. We see all these robots. We see fifth axis machines on a school budget. You can't buy those things, but the industry demands those skills, right?
For sure.
So we've got to figure out how to support the CTE programs with the budgets that we have that are bigger. And that doesn't always mean like, I got to buy or donate a machine, but your time is just as important.
Right.
So if you could give your employees 4 hours a week or a month to go into the high school and just talk about what we do, teach them, be an advocate for our industry, and to help, build that pathway for them, bring them into our shops, where they can get access to these machines. That's where that starts. It's if it's tough for us to find people that are machinists,
right?
How tough do you think it is for industry to find people to teach about machining, right? So it's like, we got to be real about the problem, and we got to be real about the part that all of us can play together to do that. So that's our first gateway into the industry, the CTE classes, the STEM classes, the clubs at the schools. And if we want the good results years later, a la skilled up workers, we've got to plant that seed and nurture that seed early on and support the people that are doing it.
Isn't that exactly right? At the high school level, at the middle school level in many, many cases. And so you think about these advancing technologies, Drew. You've got your chain that's 3D printed. You talked about fifth axis machining, and we're here at IMTS. And oh my goodness, I was up in the FANUC booth looking at their new 5-axis machining centers and what they're doing with robo drills. It's insane where that technology is going. You talk about robots and automation. You got a FANUC CRX robot sitting right behind you as we're having this conversation. Yes. And so as we're thinking through CTE, and especially let's think about some kid growing up in St. Louis, as you suggested earlier, in the neighborhoods that get talked about for all the wrong reasons. How do we get that type of technology into schools in a way that it's relatable and that we can get kids excited about what these careers look like?
Great question. So that's where I go back to the great equalizer, right? Everybody has the internet, right? So even if they can't afford a phone, they're connected to a library some kind of way, right? But everybody can afford the internet. So it's free to talk on the internet and turn your camera on. Like just speak, talk about what we do. Open your videos to the industry, like show the world what we have. And the more that we can, put our collective industry content out there, then, the algorithm's going to do its thing, right? So there's so much stuff that they see on a day-to-day basis. Like if we count the amount of kids that are on their phones as they walk past the booth, it's going to be super high. So it's like, if we know that that's where they are, let's just make sure we're there as well, right? So
Absolutely.
We can start changing the narrative ourselves right now. It doesn't cost anything but our own time. And the return on investment is an excited, skilled up workforce that wants to do the jobs that you have and that are creating new things in their mind, So I've got a student success story that I like to tell a lot. I had a student named Kyle Stoff.
Okay.
Kyle Stoff saw one of my YouTube videos when I was an instructor. He reached out and he was like, "Hey, I want to learn from you. I'm from a small town called Fenton, right outside of St. Louis." And he was like, at my high school right now, kids are into all the wrong things. And I'm not like the crowd. I like to make things with my hands.
Yeah.
I like to do stuff. And so he was like, "I want to be a part of your program." So he got his credits. He graduated a year early.
Wow.
He enrolled in our school. Before he ever took a class, he started working in our in-house internship, our student shop, right?
Okay.
So he started working so he could figure out the skills. And at the time, he was making knives, balisong knives. That was his thing.
Yeah.
He was making them by hand.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, this machine can make that knife and you could customize it better. You can do all these different things. And so he really leaned in. And before he ever took an actual CNC class, he got the skills by working in our shop. He started making his knives. He's got an Instagram right now where he sells them. He's making $15,000 to $20,000 a month. He bought a machine from our program. He's got it in his garage. And all of these things happened before he was 21.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, right? So this is the power not only that our industry has, but each one of us have by inspiring the next generation and giving them, the knowledge that we learned, the goods and the bads, and then seeing what they do with it and empowering them to do what they'd like with it, right?
Wow. They're just an amazing story. Is he an example of what you would say is assessing your skills and mapping out your championship run?
1,000%. So when we get in this industry or anything that we do in life, we've got to know where we are first, right? And to know where we are, we've got to be really real with ourselves, or we've got to have somebody that can be real with us enough to say, like Downing Ogle said to me, like, "You're not a machinist, bro, but I can make you one."
Yep.
Right? And this is what it's going to take, right? So me knowing where I was at and then knowing where I wanted to be, now I could picture myself. Okay, I see myself as a machinist.
Right.
I am a machinist. I just have to get there,
Yes.
right? So we have to know where we are. We've got to assess where we are, assess what skills we have, so we know what skills we need to get to be that next level or whatever level we want to get to.
Absolutely. And I've read a ton of like the success kind of psychology books, and whether it's going all the way back to books like Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins, or even Napoleon Hill and Norman Vincent Peale and those kind of things. And now there's some other great authors that are writing more contemporary content. I read a lot of that as well. But every single one of them tells me exactly what you just said, which is we have to envision ourselves in the position where we're going to end up as if it was real, as if we were feeling it now. And then we bring all the forces within ourselves and outside of ourselves to bear without even really knowing it in terms of helping us along that journey. Is that the truth?
1000%. And one of the things that I tell people, especially kids, when I go speak to them, and kids from the rural areas and kids from the hood that, may come from places where they don't have a lot of things or a lot of opportunity, I let them know that you're a bank. You're a bank right now with unlimited resources. And as soon as you start investing into yourself, your investment earns interest.
Awesome.
And that interest comes in the form of other people, right? So Donnie Ogle saw me needing an opportunity. He saw me being transparent, humbling myself to get this job. And then he saw me coming every day early. He saw me putting my best foot forward.
Right.
He saw me doing these things. So he said, here's another resource. We're going to send you to school so you can learn programming if you'd like to. We're going to take you from beyond where you are and show you, help you get to that vision of yourself. So I always tell people this, the moment you start making that personal investment into your future, into the better you, into the you that you want to be, there's going to be people around you that help you build interest on that investment. And you've got compounding returns now.
Absolutely. I love that whole idea of creating that investment in yourself. The interest is the people that come around you and support you on your journey. And I can tell you, I have seen that repeat itself time and time and time again in the world of manufacturing. So that whole idea of investing in yourself, I'm going to talk a little bit about how people can invest in Drew Crowe. And what I mean by that is, I'm hearing your message. I hear you talk about how you can reach this next generation of students. As somebody that grew up, I certainly didn't grow up in the inner city of my hometown of Milwaukee, but I grew up around it. So I've seen generational poverty in a city like Milwaukee. I've also seen how manufacturing can lift generations of individuals out of that poverty through opportunities in manufacturing. So if somebody wants to bring you into their community to learn more, to have this message shared with their young people and their students, if somebody wants to reach out and connect with Drew Crowe in another fashion, how do we find you?
So you guys can find me at drewcrowemfg.com. That's DREWCROWEMFG.com. When you go on that website, you can find my workbooks that are free for job seekers. I've got one for them to become a blue-collar baller or blue-collar boss lady. And then I've got a workbook for industry to connect with these future blue-collar ballers and blue-collar boss ladies.
Yes.
And really learn how to build them up. There's all action plans and everything in that. Once you've gone through that, once you check that out, then reach out to me. And we'll line up something. You can reach at me, right through the website. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. But let's talk. Let's have a conversation and figure out how we can work with you and build out you a system to have all these great results as well.
And we'll make sure we link up all those resources and the links to the books, and especially for our manufacturers listening, the opportunity to understand how you can reach out and connect with individuals that could have great opportunities in manufacturing. So we'll do that. We're going to end our time with Drew Crowe with one last question. And your answer to this is going to be really, really interesting. It's one we pose to every single guest that we have here on the Tech Ed podcast. In most cases, I'll be honest with you, when I take somebody back to their sophomore year of high school or being a 15-year-old, their version of 15-year-old, just based on the math I'm doing and kind of where you were with your son and your interaction with the correction system and all these other things, you were at a different place in 15 than most of our guests. But I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm looking forward to the answer, and that is, if you could go back and give that 15-year-old Drew Crowe one piece of advice, what would you tell him?
Hold your head up. It's all going to work out, and that's advice that I want to tell these kids too, man. Like, where you are is not where you're going to always be, and you got control over that. And, that's one thing that you can control. You might not be able to control your environment right now. You might not be able to control the things that are around you or the things that are happening to you, but you can take control by knowing that there's better out there for you. And if you walk in those steps and you continue to move forward and make that investment into yourself, everything's going to be all right and it's going to work out. And this is from a person that was a father before he was a man. I was responsible to be responsible for someone else before I, could even figure out how to figure myself out, right? So if it worked out for me, it will most definitely work out for you. and every day it gets greater later. So continue to work that course, continue to stay on your mission, stay on your goal, and your future self is going to thank you for it later.
Hold your head up. It's all going to be all right. It's certainly worked out well for Mr. Drew Crowe and for all the incredible people that you're reaching. I mean, this has just been an awesome episode. Great message, not just to the next generation of manufacturing talent, but to all of our manufacturers in terms of how they can connect with that talent and nurture them through manufacturing careers once we have them. This has just been a wonderful episode, Drew, and thank you so much for coming on.
Yo, thank you for having me. Great conversation, man. This was awesome.
And I'm so glad that you were with us as together we secure the American dream for the next generation of STEM and workforce talent. Doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you end up, and you can end up in amazing places in the world of advanced manufacturing. All kinds of resources we talked about on this episode of the Tech Ed Podcast, and we are going to link all of those up at the show notes. We have the best show notes in the business. You will find those at techedpodcast.com/Crowe. That is techedpodcast.com/CROWE. Drew talked about being all over social media at the Tech Ed Podcast. We are all over social media, whether you're on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, doesn't matter. We're there. Come find us. Comment. We would love to hear from you, and we'd love to see you next week on the Tech Ed Podcast. Until then, my name is Matt Kirkner. Thanks for being with us.